The production possibility curve is a model that illustrates the combination of output that a society can produce if all resources are being used efficiently. Let's begin by imagining a society that produces only two goods, purses and jeans. This may not be realistic, since a real economy produces millions of different goods and services. But the benefits of this approach is that it enables us to understand the trade-off in the production process without making the analysis too complicated. If our theoretical society decides to spend some of its resources producing purses and some producing jeans, its economy will end up with a combination of purses and jeans that can be placed between point A and E on the graph. At point C, for example, the society would deploy its resources to produce 52,000 purses and 20,000 jeans. If our society decides to produce more jeans and moves from point C to point D, the combination will change. The amount of purses will go from 52,000 to 38,000, and the production of jeans will go from 20,000 to 30,000. Each point along the production possibility curve is a set of outcomes that society can choose from if it uses all its resources efficiently. When society is producing efficiently, the only way to get more of one good is to produce less of another. Notice that as we move along the PPF curve, the opportunity cost of producing jeans increases. For example, when moving from point C to point D, our society goes from making 52,000 purses to 38,000 purses. Notice that some combinations of purses and jeans cannot be produced. For example, 60,000 purses and 30,000 jeans. Given the available resources, this society could not produce at that level. At 60,000 purses, society could only make 10,000 jeans. What about the combination of 52,000 purses and 10,000 jeans? This point is possible, but indicates an inefficient use of society's resources and would not be recommended. Notice the slope of the production possibility curve. It is not linear, but rather boat-shaped. This is because not all resources are perfectly adaptable for use in the production of purses and jeans. For example, some workers are better at making purses and others are better at making jeans. When society tries to make more jeans, it will be using both types of workers. That is, to produce more jeans, society will have to use more workers who are increasingly less skilled at making jeans. This means that the cost of making jeans will increase. For example, in order to produce extra jeans, the society can choose to move from point C, which is 20,000 jeans, to point D, which would be 30,000 jeans. By moving from point C to D, this will decrease the production of purses. The production of purses goes from 52,000 to 38,000. This means the cost of the additional 10,000 jeans is 14,000 purses. If we break the cost down to one pair of jeans, the opportunity cost of producing that one pair of jeans would be 1.4 purses. Suppose society wants even more jeans and moves from point D to point E, 30,000 pairs of jeans to 40,000 pairs of jeans. By moving from point D to E, our society gives up producing 38,000 purses. This means the opportunity cost of making one pair of jeans is 3.8 purses. The principle of increasing opportunity cost states that as the production of one good expands, the cost of the other good increases. In our example, when our society moves from point C to point D, the opportunity cost was 14,000, or 1.4 purses for every pair of jeans. When our society moved from point D to E, the opportunity cost was 38,000 purses, or 3.8 purses for one pair of jeans. This increasing opportunity cost is why the slope of the production possibility curve is not linear but boat-shaped.